So August is coming to a wrap, and throughout this month, there's a small handful of movies I saw, but never really had much of an inclination to do full-fledged videos on them, because I just don't have a lot to say about them. So I've decided at the end of every month, I'll compile everything I watched that I recorded in my letterbox, so let's get right into it. You're gonna see some movies that I have made a video on, so I'm either going to skip them in this list, and or if I have something to say that I forgot to mention in the original video, I'll bring it up in every monthly recap instead. I should also mention I mostly make content on movies in concurrent to the year they came out. That way I don't overload myself with content and burn myself out. But sometimes I just miss out, man. Whether it came out earlier in the year before, 2 years before, or even 40 decades before, this monthly segment is where I'll be sharing most of my thoughts on them. So here's my letterbox for August. Take a good look. And let's get started. So to kick off the month of August, we have Lisa Frankenstein. I quite enjoyed this film. The thing with this movie is that it's quite a very simple coming-of-age love story. It spices up this love story, however, by giving it a very light-hearted and quirky tone to it, combined with a lot of dark humor. There were many moments that the movie was just unapologetically cartoony as well, and it really put a smile on my face.
Inpatient. Lockdown. Special socks. Where a disturbed person like you belongs.
No standout performances per se, but I do like Catherine Newton in this much better than Midman. Some of the jokes here actually landed as well, unlike that movie.
Oh, thank you. That's helping. My Aunt Shelley gave it to me for Christmas. She said it might improve my personality.
My name is Darren, and I am not a dad!
Wah, wah, wah.
It's also cool to see one of the Sprouse brothers again, and he does an adequate job of being a goofy corpse. I'm pretty sure most actors could have filled in on the role and do just as well, but I'm actually glad it was one of the Sprouse brothers at the end of the day, because, you know, I mean, it's part of my childhood after all. Overall, Lisa Frankenstein might not be something you're moving up in your to-do list, but it is, however, a nice, simple, and digestible watch for a lazy night in. Maybe like a lazy date night or something. I don't know, something simple. It's a simple watch. It's a simple movie. It's a simple movie. That's really the best way I can put it. Next, we have another lighthearted coming-of-age film. We have Problemista. So basically, this follows Alejandro, an aspiring toy maker, struggling to make it in New York while his work visa is expiring. So not only does he need to find a new sponsor, but also struggles to find work until he runs across an eccentric widow who's trying to honor her husband's work. If this was more of a heartfelt story of immigration or whatever, I think this could have been a much more compelling watch. But just like Lisa Frankenstein, this film is very simple and lighthearted with some quirky elements to it, especially in some of the film's creative visual presentation to exemplify Alejandro's artistic mind. There was a moment where this movie took a dark turn, but other than that, another nice, simple, and digestible watch for a night in. Next, we have an exciting one. We have 1984's Terminator, directed by James Cameron. So I guess my experience with this sort of mirrors my experience with 1979's Alien. I saw them both for the first time a couple years back, then rewatched them a second time in theaters for an anniversary, both this year no less. However, it sort of diverges a bit in the sense that I came to like Alien more when in theaters, whereas I didn't enjoy Terminator as much the second time around. What I remember that stood out to me and why I liked it so much was the suspenseful horror they were able to create from this film. I remember just being absolutely gripped every time the Terminator was on screen because Arnold holds such a demanding presence every time he's on screen, alongside seeing how helpless our protagonists are when they're up against him. So the second time seeing it again, I didn't feel the same rush or tension, but it's not necessarily the movie's fault. It's more so the fact that knowing what the horror is because you experienced it before would naturally lighten the tension. However, I was also able to have a deeper appreciation for the film when seeing it on a bigger screen in theaters. It's impressive how they were able to make a movie like this in a time period it came out in, considering how the technology for this sort of thing wasn't as accessible yet. James Cameron's ability to create such an intense atmosphere of the future heavily lends into its world building, making it arguably very immersive. The sense of scale he is able to articulate also helps convey how advanced the Terminators are and why they're such a threat to humanity. Also, something about the stop motion of the full reveal of the Terminator's true robotic form kinda adds to its horror. It screams dated filmmaking technology, but at the same time, something about the stop motion movements felt very unsettling in the context of the film, giving the Terminator almost an otherworldly feel, adding to its horror. Even though I don't enjoy the film as much, I still walked out the theater with a greater appreciation with not just the film itself, but filmmaking in general. Now, to round off the month of August, we have DIDI, and this was honestly quite a treat. Once again, another coming-of-age story. It's sort of a pseudo-biopic that's based on the director's story growing up as an Asian American. You can tell this movie was really having fun with itself in the first half of the movie or so. It's just like a lot of callbacks to most kids that age, and it captures the essence of being a teenager quite perfectly, especially as an Asian American. There was even an Easter egg of early 2000s Bart Kwan and Joe Jitsukawa, which made me jolt a bit and point at the screen. Don't get it twisted, the focus on this movie isn't to be a representation of the Asian American audience, rather it's just an element served to push the film's story. I will say, even though this movie starts off really strong and had a lot of great fun moments, about halfway into the movie it starts becoming repetitive with not much payoff. It sort of retreads the same plot point over and over again, which made me eventually just check out. I understand the narrative purpose it served, but it still could have been handled better to help with the pacing. However, being Sean Wang's directorial debut, I'm rather pleased and I'll be keeping an eye out for his future work. Okay, so that wraps up my movie roundup for August. Did you see the movies I mentioned in this video? What did you think of them? And what did you see for the month of August? Comment down below, let's have a conversation, and I'll see you guys around the same time this month. Later.